Welcome all of you. Every time we do one of these events, I'm just blown away. It's a feeling I can't even describe to see the community show up, support Wake Up, Creighton's House, everything that our mission's about, and growing up here just to see the room and all of the people supporting us is a great feeling, and I appreciate y'all being here. I just wanted to take just a quick minute to acknowledge our board members and everyone that is behind Wake Up and what we do. Of course, starting Nancy Stedman-Shipman, our executive director, Sloan Todd, and actually, if y'all could stand up, I'd like to let everyone see y'all. Sloan, John Bell, where's John? Right here. Carol Fair, Carol, Tracy McDearest, Sam Wells, Jay Thrower, and Blair Martin. Thank you guys for everything y'all do. Really appreciate being with y'all. I wanted to let everybody know on your table you'll see a little question and answer form, and please, as we go through today, this morning, if y'all think of anything, just jot that down, and then at the end we'll have a little question and answer. We're happy to answer anything. I think these events are important. I know that I knew about Wake Up before I got involved and was like, what a great thing for young adults. And then as I got involved, I was like, oh my gosh, what a great thing for moms, dads, friends, family, cousins, the community, So please write those questions down, ask, and get to know more about what we do, and we're happy to answer those questions. Also, any of the board members you just saw, you can certainly grab them if you just wanted to ask a brief question as well. The donations, every year it's a little different. There is a card on your table, and you're welcome to fill those out and leave them there. They're very secure. We pick them up. We take our time to make sure we get all of those. And then also there's a QR code that you can scan. You can go to our website, and we just want to make sure that's as simple as possible, and we can answer those questions. And of course, we thank you all for your donations, and really thankful for everything that you guys do with that. So with that, also a lot of volunteers in the moms group, a lot of people helped us make the room look beautiful today, and the shelves on your table that I think are so awesome that say hope and have a lot of meaning behind them, you're welcome to take those with you. I think they're a nice little keepsake, so welcome to take those when you leave. And with that, I'm going to introduce Steve Wood with St. Andrew's Episcopal Church to say a prayer to get us going.
Morning. Let's pray as we begin our time. Gracious God, you look upon us and see the unsteady and at times confusing road on which we live. We pray that you would remind us that your ways give more life than the ways of the world, and that following after you is better than chasing after selfish goals. Give us grace to take failure, not as a measure of our worth, but as a chance for a new start. And give us grace and strength that we might hold our faith in you and keep alive our joy in your creation. We ask your blessing now, gracious God, upon this time, upon this food, and upon this ministry and organization. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Steve. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Will Haney to come up and say a few words and speak. Thank you, Will, for always being here for Wake Up.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate it. Good morning. We were talking before we got up here. Steve Wood is my pastor, and Nancy asked me would I speak for up to 5 minutes, and I said, no. Preachers and politicians are never criticized for speaking too short. So I will be much shorter than that. One of the things I want to do, someone who has not been recognized yet, but it falls on me to do that very happily, is Carl Ritchie, who is here. He is a town council member now, chosen by the people after his years of distinguished service as our police chief. And I credit Carl with bringing the town of Mount Pleasant as a government entity into the fray, into the forefront, and the need for what Wake Up Carolina and Creighton's House does. And you'll probably hear more about that from Nancy in just a little bit. But we have a moniker that was put on Mount Pleasant by other people, Mount Perfect, right? You've all heard it. And you can ask Carl after being a police chief, or Blair Martin, who's on the board now, makes me very happy, or ask any pastor or a family struck by a crisis if we are perfect in Mount Pleasant, and we are far from it. And so we need the awareness, the education, and the hope in recovery that is offered by this group. And you know, we are still the town of Mount Pleasant, and I'm asked by a lot of new residents, why a town that's approaching 100,000 people calls itself a town? You're a municipality, you're a city, but we always want to be a town. And what you see here today is a town, and we have to come together. We have to surround each other in times of crisis. We have to know that there's somebody who cares, somebody that you can reach out to. And as things all get bigger and better in the town of Mount Pleasant, we cannot get away from that. If we do, we will lose our heart and soul. And then the hope and recovery part, my wife Suzette is here. We are a family with a family member in recovery. And Nancy has been a constant source of encouragement, of prayer, and information for us. So we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk as a family, and we live it every day. I know there are many of you here who know that and experience that. But it's time for us to take this to the next level for the well-being of Mount Pleasant. We have two major crises. One is declared an emergency in our nation, and that's an opioid crisis. It's an emergency. We all know that story. If you haven't seen the docu-movie Dope Sick, I urge you to see that and see the forces that were at play to bring this upon us. Law enforcement had to deal with that. And there's going to be big settlement money coming this way, and we need to make sure that those resources are put to use. But we also have a mental health crisis in this country, and we're not, you know, because of Mount Pleasant's upscale, wealthy, highly educated demographic, we're not immune to any of that, and I'm talking to the people who know that best. So please pour out your hearts and pour out your support for what we're talking about today, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks.
Flip-flops were not appropriate. I have all of my stuff. First of all, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? We're not a big fan of microphones in here because it echoes, but everybody hear me okay? If not, just like point up and I'll talk louder. HomeGrown Hope. We send it in our constant contact, thank goodness for that. We found out that over half of our invites got lost in the mail. And you would think that would be like, oh my gosh, what happened? What we learned in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks, that was the beginning of things that started falling apart for our HomeGrown Hope Breakfast. Is that a sign? I don't take it as a sign, but if you ask anybody in our office, we were totally freaking out, right? Of course the envelopes got lost. Of course this can't happen. Of course she can't do it. Of course. And it led up all the way until Friday. And then we got out of the way of ourselves. We were like, what is HomeGrown Hope? It starts here in our community, in our heart. Whoever is going to come, whether they got the invitation or not, will come. If they didn't come, hey, we have a video this year, so they can go back to that. But you know what we learned last year and 2 years before that? Is this is our oldest event that we do. The very first year, Lieutenant Governor came down. The room was packed, first responders, local attorneys, lawmakers, families that have been touched, those that are in recovery, those that were like, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to see what's going on. It started with starting a conversation. People were dying. My son died. Our family was impacted. Support came through zip codes, through states, across the country. And we weren't anybody special. And it started that conversation is, this community came together to support a young man that happened to lose his life to a substance, but he was so much more than that. And I say this all the time, but he was honored and remembered and loved for more than his disease. Our family was supported for more than our struggle and our loss. That started the heart of what we do. And those that have come over the years to the breakfast, at first it was like, please come, please come. And then the next year we're like, okay, we're supposed to be intentional. We are a nonprofit organization. Let's be intentional who comes. And then we learned from those that came from the first one, and then they're following, why weren't we included? And not only why weren't we included to the breakfast, we also learned that our organization that started out was starting a conversation, what's being done in the community, was, okay, now we know what we're starting, a young adult group. Our first harm reduction measure, which was Narcan. Then it started with, what's close to my heart, is the families. You know, when we talk about recovery, breakfast, events, it's our community, it's our family, it's our story, and so is our recovery. So what started that 2020 with our family, our recovery, our community, our recovery, were the family groups. That mom-to-mom group was more than just helping the mothers who were like, what's going on, what's happening, but it was honoring our hearts. The moment we gave birth, the moment we fostered, the moment we adopted, the moment this little person comes into our life and we are then a mother, stepmother, a foster mother, or a mother not by blood but by grace or by family and friends, we're touched the minute our person starts struggling. So our family part started growing. Along with the family part started growing all of our other programs. And over the years, and I'm sure many of you that have come from the very first breakfast all the way up until today are very familiar with our trifold, right? It looks a little different, a little bigger, but we're a nonprofit. We can't have all the really pretty marketing pieces, but this is what we have. This names all of our programs and services in our story. But the HomeGrown Hope part is our why. We can give you our personal impact. We can tell you our stories. But what it really boils down to is, who are you really serving? What are you really doing? The college student that donated $10 a week for the past 4 years, the family that donates $1,800 once a year because it's important to them, the single mother that donates $5 twice a month because she's working her recovery and wants to give that opportunity to someone else with treatment scholarships. I could go on and on about our stories, but what we have this year is our new piece, our HomeGrown Hope packet. I'm so excited. I mean, when I say I'm so excited, our board is so excited. This is our meat and potatoes. You want to know where your time, talent, treasures have gone for the past 6 years? It's in here. Everyone should have one. We are tickled to have all 200, and we are thankful that Trio worked with us on this. Blood, sweat, tears. Let's go to our first page. I'm going to kind of go over it with you because it's important. The people. Since October 2020, and I've touched that we grew 364% by the end of 2020 with all of our fundraisers canceled, which was one of the most stressful, scary, awful times in my life. We grew 364%. When we started plugging in the numbers, from October 2020 to today, our reach is 568,366 individuals. That's a lot, y'all. And why are we tired, Tim and Alan and Elizabeth and our board? Why are we tired? Because we're working our tails off to help support, help provide awareness, help bring education, help start new programs that aren't being done in the area. So what does that look like? Our outreach, what consists of our outreach? Community events, emails, social media messages, people that walk in our door. That is our outreach. That's 408,366 individuals. Programs and services. As I said, in our trifold or even on the following page, you will see all of our current programs and services. We have 11 powerful, impactful programs and services that started out holding space. If no one came, then that's who was supposed to be there, the person running the meeting as well as the recovery coach, as John Bell very well knows with our Creighton South first meeting. Correct, John?
Yes.
Who came?
Me.
You. For how long?
Not too long.
But long enough.
Yeah.
But if you're committed, you hold space. 5 people show up, those are exactly who's supposed to be there. We can't be another broken part of that system. We have to hold that door open, figuratively and literally. So our programs and services, 64,000 people. That's treatment scholarships, that's young adult group, that's night out, that's mother's group, dad's group, virtual siblings group. So many individuals through our programs and services. Harm reduction. Who knows what harm reduction is? If you feel comfortable, raise your hand. Harm reduction, anybody? Fence strips, Narcan, HIV, Hep C testing. It's a controversial thing, but I encourage you to learn more about it. As an organization, we believe as long as there's breath, there's hope. There is no judgment, there is no shame. I have to admit that in the beginning, I did not believe in it. That was 2016, because all I knew is what I was educated by. Why in the hell would we have Narcan? Bring them back to life, they go out and use again. I mean, we don't need that. That's all I knew to be true. And when I spoke in front of the State Firemen's Association, that's what I told them, because it was a safe space and they started sharing different thoughts. I learned different. I learned that Narcan is one tool. While there is breath, there is hope. We need as many tools as possible to meet someone where they are. People are dying, as we know, not because of the disease, but because of recreational substance use. Recreational substance use. There's cross-contamination. In our greater Tri-County area that we serve, there was an investigation in marijuana along with other substances. And when the marijuana was tested, fentanyl was in it. And you can say that's controversial, it doesn't happen. It happens. As soon as we posted that on social media, we started getting calls from, and I'm specifically thinking of one, this 21-year-old guy, his fiance had died, not because of what we posted, but prior to, she was in the middle of taking a qualifying exam, and she went to take a bath, and she was in there for a while, which is normal to exhale, whatever from the test. Knock, 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 and then he opened the door, and she was unconscious. She had smoked marijuana, and it had been cross-contaminated with fentanyl, and she had died. So we can say it doesn't happen. I can tell you it happens. The importance of that is we need to have Narcan at our disposal. We need to be able to know that we are all community caregivers, that we are all in a position to be able to see an overdose. And the majority of the people that we train in Narcan are people that don't know someone specifically that is impacted by this disease. And the people that use it are usually with someone they don't know. Uber driver, an elderly gentleman passed out in the car of a football parking lot, at a restaurant and someone falling in front of them, in front of their table. These are 3 specific examples we were notified that our Narcan training equipped them with giving the breath of life. So again, I'm sharing my experience. What I knew, I learned different, and then my views changed. There is no room for judgment. This is life. So anyway, 48,000 for harm reduction. That's a lot. It's powerful. One of my board members said, when we talk about our timeline, we are a young organization. We do a lot of work. Let's have an arrow that shows that it doesn't stop, because it doesn't. You being our homegrown hope, you tell us what's needed. Tim is our senior program director. Tim, you want to stand up a minute? And Alan, so y'all can see faces of who I'm talking about. This year we were able to hire 2 full-time people in our office. So now we have 3 full-time people to meet that need. Why I'm saying this is Tim is a great partner to me. Organized, concise, let's go. And when we started talking about our programs and services, he was like, holy cow, y'all do a lot. And I was like, I know. And he's like, is that the goal? And I was like, no, it was not the goal. We want to do one thing and do one thing really well. However, when things aren't happening in the community that are needed, we are going to get that call, and then we will get a number of calls. Then we'll have someone that pops in the door, or then we have the young adult saying, we want 2 nights out a month. We want 2 nights out a week. Everyone will tell us it is not our organization. What may have started as a passion or lived experience has grown into your organization. Our programs and services are what you have told us that we need, not just in this community right now for our children, for our neighbors, for our parents, for our coworkers, but for all those in the Tri-County area. So look at our arrow of our timeline with when we started. Our family made that promise July 17th, 2016. And from that, it grew. And I really encourage you to look at April 2017. That is when our organization changed for the better. Prior to that, it was a prevention organization. I changed prevention to awareness because if you are aware that we want to prevent first use, first sip, we also want to prevent continued use. We want to prevent the struggle. We want to prevent death. But we also want to prevent, if you are no longer here, for your family not to struggle and stay in that sick place. So I pulled the word of prevention out, and we have awareness. Awareness, education with hope, and recovery. Recovery is possible, always. So that was the defining point. Prevention was thrown out the window. Awareness was stuck in. And recovery is what my son shared with me and what he was after, and those that I was impacted by. That's when recovery was stuck in. That's when Wake Up Carolina became your organization. So I'm running out of time now because I'm speaking too much, too fast. Who are we? We are you. We look like you. We sound like you. We are the greater Tri-County, Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester area. People want to think that, oh, do you only serve 29464? Do you only serve 29466? Wouldn't that be great if that was true? Because nobody would live here if that's all we serve. No, we serve everyone. We do not discriminate. We have a mom that drives 45 minutes to an hour and a half to come to our mother's group. We have a young adult that would drive 30 to 40 minutes with good traffic to come to our group. We serve every zip code in all 3 counties. We have been asked many times to do satellites. At this time, we're not comfortable doing satellites. That is our hope. Our hope is to be able to have recovery coaches, peer supports that can take what we've learned and help it speak the community language in other zip codes. Every community language speaks its own. But if we can give the tools and the framework for each community to have what we have in their backyard, removing that barrier of distance, that's a win. So we will do that, but we want to do what we're doing really well and have space to be able to do it better. Our pillars, we've talked about that, awareness, education with hope and recovery. And then our community support. Community support looks in many ways, but if you want to know, because it's truly important to know the efficiency of an organization, how much does every dollar donated go into your programs and services? I'm really proud to let you know that we are a small staff. Every staff member is Narcan trained, meaning that we can train anyone that walks in the door. All of us, as long as you have that lived experience, will do all the groups. Everyone that we pay works. That's why many of you, and I'm going to hide back here, that's why many of you send emails that might not get answered. It's not because it's not important. We do our very best to answer every Instagram message, Facebook message, text message, cell phone call, all of it, but it gets dropped at times. And that's because there are 3 of us with a couple contract people that come in and out to help, but we are it. Anything you've gotten, any call that's been returned, any email, any mailing, pretty much is between the 3 of us, the 2 guys, myself, Elizabeth, and volunteers. So I appreciate your grace. So every dollar that comes in goes right back into programs and services. We've raised between grants and funds since October 2020, $951,844. That's a lot to think that in the year 2020, all 4 fundraisers were canceled. So we couldn't have done what we did without you. But what we do know, 2 things, and I'm wrapping it up so we can get to our keynote speaker, is that we need you to continue doing what you're doing. Your commitment to helping us grow and learn, your commitment to helping double our staff, your commitment to, which we will update shortly about the space. We are your organization. We are only as good as your time, talent, treasures that you help us with. And I ask you, please continue to commit to being a part of our growth. Please commit to, if your call doesn't get answered, call again. Call the office, come in. Help us tidy the office while we're still in this small space. Whatever that looks like, we need you. We need you to help us continuing being a beacon of hope in our community because you are our safe space. We may provide it, but you are our safe space. You have made it possible to go from a grieving family, from a promise made, to an organization of 11 strong programs and services, some that aren't being done in the greater states or the Southeast. Unfortunately, we cannot consult to other states as we've had calls right now because we're small. One day we might, but we do really good work. We are the best in the state for family support. We are the best in the state for young adults. And that is because of you. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I encourage you to really look at this, and I promise next year you will have an updated one, so it will not be like our trifold that you will see probably forever and ever. It will be something that will continue to update with those we serve. It will continue to update the money that we receive. But what I'm going to transition to is our keynote speaker. Hope. Isn't it funny? At your seat, you will see an oyster shell that one of our most amazing, beautiful volunteers made for you, each of you. I encourage you to take that home. That's for you to have a little piece of hope to take with you. And our keynote speaker is one of the most special people in my life. We may not talk every week. We may not see each other all the time. But my life forever changed that week in July in 2016 in Statesboro, Georgia, because of a woman named Hope Aldred. She taught me what it was to be a sick family and to be a family member in recovery. After my week at Statesboro, or that short week, Hope continued to help me heal and help my family heal. She is the root of what our family recovery piece is, and we are thankful to have our senior program director and our program director, but we need a full-time family person. Family is most special to me outside of the young adults, but it is time for me to move more to that executive administrator side and let you know that family recovery is possible. And the best person that can share that is our very own Hope Aldred. She is our keynote speaker, and she's going to share with you about her passion. Come on up, Hope.
So I brought my laptop because I just found out about this, right, Nancy? But that's the best way to do it. So Nancy actually, when I talked to her, when I talked? Tuesday? I don't know what date it is. Tuesday? Anyway, when she asked me, she said she had a big ask. And the reason I have my computer is because y'all don't want me getting derailed. But she said, I have a big ask. And so I was like, okay, what is it? Because most of us know when Nancy asks, we usually say yes, right? And I thought, well, I mean, what can be so scary? Like if she asked me to organize her closet maybe, or, teach Ham how to tie a shoe. But this was not a big ask, by the way, okay? So I'm happy to be here. And I have to admit, when I walked by earlier, because my table's over there, and I saw Hope, I was like, oh, I'm at the wrong table. So that tells you that. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to take some pictures of those and send them to my two sons and say that they had a very special breakfast for me. They might believe me. So this is obviously not named after me. But I did get asked recently what it was like to have a name like Hope. And I had never really thought about that. I don't think I had. And they asked me a question. They said, do you think your life would be different if you had a different name? Now, my name is actually Stephanie Hope. But my mother, we're from the South, and Hope Stephanie didn't sound as good as Stephanie Hope. So I go by my middle name. And I hope not. I do hope not. But when Nancy says what you just said, I feel the same way about you. And I'm not going to look at Nancy, because last time I spoke in front of Nancy, I cried, and it wasn't cute. So I'm not gonna look over that way. So in the fall, I've got notes because I wanted some dates here. In the fall of 2015, and the reason I know this is because your wife responded to my text. You did not, Tim. We'll talk about that later. But I couldn't remember exactly when Tim came, but I knew this was about the time. But in the fall of 2015, I met Tim. Tim was, and I'm sure you credit, just like Nancy, all the good things in your life because I led your family program? Yeah. Anyway, that's not right. But I remember Tim, and I remember his parents, and I remember his dad. His dad came in. He looked like, is he riding motorcycles? He just looks really cool. He's got muscles, and he was very emotional and tender. And I don't forget families usually. So I'm actually, this is so cool for me to see. There's a lot of full circle stuff happening here. So I'm proud that Tim is a part of this program too. Then in June of 2016, a real handsome fella named Creighton came into Willing Way where I worked. And he was a favorite to all the staff instantly. He was the guy that I don't ever remember him complaining. And He obviously was super charismatic, and we loved Creighton, and he was there for a while. And I remember when I came to that community event, I'm going to look at y'all for a minute. I don't know if y'all remember this, Creighton's grandparents, but y'all asked me a question. You said, "You knew Creighton?" And I said, "I did." And you said, "What was he like those last 6 weeks?" And it truly, to this day, is one of the greatest privileges of my life to be able to look at y'all and say, "Oh my God, he was the best. He was great. He was always throwing the football. He was always playing cornhole." And y'all asked me, "Was he happy?" And the answer was yes. So I don't know if y'all remember that, but I'll never forget that. And he was, in fact, very happy, and he was loved there, and he changed lives. He changed lives, and he continues to change lives. So, you know, within days of Creighton leaving Willingway Hospital, just like Nancy said, a promise was made. And family work is the work that I do, and it is hard work. But that call was the hardest call I've ever had, to this day. And I really had no idea what I was going to hear on the other side of the line when Nancy called me. But I can tell you that when she said a conversation started at that time, it did. And to this day, I'm still kind of baffled. I don't know how many people y'all went down the list before you got me, but I'm good with it. But I'm just baffled and humbled that I actually get to be a part of it, and that I can say I was there, and I remember that. You know, I've experienced hopelessness before. I've loved and lost someone to alcoholism and opiate addiction, and I love what someone said about watching Dope Sick. I can tell you when I watched that, Dope Sick, I almost had an outer body experience because I experienced that with a spouse with Oxycontin. Now, alcoholism was probably present, but it's a real thing. So yeah, the depiction of it is pretty accurate. So thank you for sharing that, because I shared that alone. You know, it's not really in the church ladies' book about what you do when people lose people with alcoholism and addiction. You know, they don't know. Do you bring the casserole? Do you not bring the casserole? Do you say anything? Do you not say anything? And so I'm not thankful that I've loved and lost, but I'm thankful that I can truly empathize. And I think that's the power behind Wake Up Carolina and Creighton's story, is because you can truly empathize. You're not just saying, "Hey, I know where you've been," and thinking, you know, "Oh, I knew somebody or I saw it on TV." You truly can do that. In 2021, Nancy and I had another discussion, and we decided, hey, what about siblings? So I actually have a brother who's an alcoholic and addict, and been in and out of treatment. And to this day, the compass of whether or not my mother is okay or not okay is based on whether or not he's okay or not okay. So I know the role of kind of being the family hero, but the lost child, and so we started talking about that. And just so y'all know how far-reaching this is, because fortunately they allow me to do this group once a month via Zoom, and so it doesn't matter where I am, which is fun. I can play a little gypsy like I like to do, and can be in different towns. But I actually wrote this down, or typed this down, because I went back to look at where the people have joined. I've had people from California, New Mexico, Texas, Massachusetts, New York, Georgia, of course, Florida, and North Carolina, and of course South Carolina. And that's because of your support. So on the first Wednesday of every month, we hold a space for siblings to come, and it's pretty amazing. I've got some regulars in the Mount Pleasant area, so that's great. But it's all over, and there's treatment facilities all around that are so thankful for that. And to my knowledge, there's no one doing that. To my knowledge, there's no one that does what Wake Up Carolina does in that setting. I want to share something really, really important with y'all, because when I was talking to Tim and Nancy the other day, I wanted to share, because I don't think these are sometimes some of the things that people don't know that happened, but it was last year, probably around this time, Nancy reached out to me, and she had a wife that she wanted to connect me with. I believe she's a school teacher, husband in and out of jobs. They were struggling. I had 2 teenage girls, and she said, we will sponsor her to have some sessions with you. I have a private practice now. And so I met with her, and she was broken, and she was struggling, and her husband was addicted to heroin. And despite all of his efforts, we were talking, thank goodness for Narcan. There were overdoses. It was truly chaotic. But she got stronger, and he finally, and actually, I connected him with Tim, because when I say, hey, Tim, can I give your number out? He's never told me no. And he answers that call. Sometimes they call, sometimes they don't. And I don't know if you remember this either, Tim, but he called you. I actually texted her last night, and I said, would you text me what that meant to you? And let me tell you what happened in that time period. Hopeless, exhausted, 2 teenage daughters around the holidays, waiting on a bed. He was agreeing to go, agreeing not to go. I mean, saying he wouldn't go, going back and forth. If anybody's trying to get someone in treatment, you know what I'm talking about. But this is what she said. So I asked her, I said, would you be willing to share with me what that experience was like for you? She said, I'm not sure I could describe the words how much what the moms group did for my family. They didn't know us at all, but reached out and showed love to us at a time when we desperately needed it. I want to preface this to say that one of the things that I knew was she was struggling. She realized in the midst of the chaos, she had not gotten stockings or had done the stocking stuffers for her children, her teenage daughters. She was just feeling overwhelmed by something. I remember I talked to Nancy, and she said, what can we do? I said, tell the moms group I've got an idea for them. And this is where this came from. She said, they didn't know us at all, but reached out and showed love to us at a time when we desperately needed it. They put together a Christmas stocking for each of our girls with candy, small gifts, and a Target gift card. When they dropped them off, she got out, gave me a hug, and let me know that they were there, and they understood what I was going through. This happened to be the day that we were telling the girls that her husband would be going to rehab, and he would be gone after Christmas. We sat down and had a very hard and emotional conversation with them, but then got to give them the stockings and tell them about Wake Up Carolina and the group of moms who did that for them. It was really such a good way for us to feel some joy in a very tough situation. And then I asked her, I said, would you tell me how that impacted your husband? Because I remember her calling me. He was on the fence about treatment. And she said, if that's what community looks like, if that's what recovery looks like, I'll go. She said, he said it meant so much to him to know that while he was gone, there were people who would be there for us if we need support in any way. He felt so guilty about being gone for an extended time and leaving me to take care of everything, and this gave him hope that things would be okay. He was overwhelmed with the kindness of people who didn't know him, but were willing to be there and not judge. That's Wake Up Carolina. I don't know, I mean, that's just what happens all the time. You know, as I close, I want to tell y'all, just this week, this was before I knew that I was going to be doing this. Sunday, I got a text from a dad who went to Columbia, South Carolina. His daughter goes to that school, University of South Carolina, those Gamecocks. I'm a bulldog, but besides that, she's real cute. I like her, and I like him. But he went to visit her at college, and their relationship was very strained and had been. He is 120 days sober now. His sister reached out to Nancy a year ago. She reached out to me. It took a year. He got into treatment, and he's restoring relationships with his children right here before the holidays. Also, too, on Tuesday night, I got an email from a dad whose 24-year-old is 10 months sober. He found help through Wake Up Carolina to get his son into treatment and then a sober living environment, and they're going to spend Thanksgiving. Their family's going to spend Thanksgiving at the sober living environment with their son and his new community of recovery. And they said that they're most grateful this year for their son's recovery and his life, because we all know we're here for a good reason. We all know where it can go. And he said that he can't think of anywhere else he would rather spend. He went on to tell me, I called him, and he went on to tell me, he said, yeah, and our son has to work, so we're going to be there by ourselves. And I just love that so much. Like, he said they'll come later. I want to tell y'all that one of my favorite quotes is, and I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't chop it up. It says, tell the story of the mountain you climbed. Your words could become a page in someone else's survival guide. And that's what Wake Up Carolina does and continues to do. It's because of you that there's a we, you know. I don't know everybody's story, but I can look around the room. I see some familiar faces. And I loved when I walked up, I said, hey, I'm Hope. And she said, yeah, I know. And then I looked, and I've seen a lot of these faces via a screen. I couldn't be more honored to be a part of it. And I can tell you the most important thing that I do and the work I do, if a family asks me, you can only give me one piece of advice, Hope, what's it going to be? I will tell them, find people who have either been in your shoes or are in your shoes. Those are your people. That's who these people are. That's who Nancy's been. That's who Tim is. And then I can't think of a greater way to spread hope, but to help families, because I can tell you sometimes families get better, and sometimes the people who are struggling do not. But families do heal, and families do recover. And if Tim and Nancy and I could stand here and smile today, anybody can, right? Yeah. And that's all I have. Thank you so much for asking me to come.
I wanted to make one comment because I made a mistake when I was introducing the board members. I saved one for last because she was the one who was in charge of making sure this room looked good and all the food was here, and that's Angela Birchfield. So, Angela, thank you. Sorry I left you out. So,
Why am I speaking in that? Y'all can't hear me there. So, update on space, right? I want to, before I share one thing, last year, David Yarbrough was gracious to be our keynote speaker, and he said, they obviously need lots of space, because every time I would talk to him or anybody, I'm like, we've outgrown our space. So our numbers are higher this year, right? And in April, I was like, we need space. We're still in our space, but there's an update. You know, with perspective, you get that through time. And when we signed that lease, as you see in that, like, HomeGrown Hope booklet, it was a prayer. Let us get a door, people will come. Well, we outgrew that space in 6 months from signing that lease in the middle of COVID. So we learn what we learned through our perspective. So instead of signing a lease really quick because the place is great and it's big, we decided we're going to do something different. We're going to continue fundraising, and we're going to get the right space based on who we're serving, and now that we have the numbers from the past 2 years, where we're headed. Sensible, right? It makes sense. So, you know, we can't be all things to all people, but one of our board members was gracious enough to say, I'll spearhead that. You want to look for a new space? Let's get this conversation really going in the right direction. So with that being said, I want to introduce you to our board member and the person that has graciously agreed to lead that campaign, Jay Thrower.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. Hopefully it was gracious when I accepted. But again, I want to thank everybody for being here. This is amazing. This is an event that honors everyone that's in this room, honestly, because it's a community-based organization, and everybody here is a part of that. And we love the fact that you're here. You know, when I hear Nancy speak and Hope, go Dogs, by the way, I'm just so inspired. Her passion around what she does, her relentless pursuit of, you know, the 3 pillars for this organization, it's amazing to me. So if we could just take 1 second to acknowledge that and maybe give her a round of applause, please. All right, thank you. So if you look at page 3 of this package, you see the arrow that Nancy talked about, and you see the explosive growth of this organization. And it's all based on need. As Nancy described, this organization fills the needs that aren't being taken care of in our community. There are no other organizations that do what Wake Up Carolina does. And so as you digest that and you digest the things that are going on in our society, it's it's a crazy world we live in, and thank God that we have organizations and we have people like Nancy that can help with these things. So if you've had the chance to be by the office, it's pretty easy to see that we have a big need. We've got needs that are way up here, and we've got a space that's maybe down here. So we're embarking on a mission to provide a better long-term space. As a part of that, and we wanted to talk about that today briefly, I don't want to muddy the water because right now what we critically need are the donations and time and effort and whatever we can get as it relates to the organizational needs, the services that are currently in place. And we'll be talking in the future about the needs as it relates to the building and a capital campaign focused on that. So this is a teaser, but it was important to follow up since it was a topic last year. So what we're going to do as a board, we're going to have a retreat in a strategic planning session in December. Coming out of that meeting, our hope is that we clearly have defined both a 2-3 year plan and a 5-year plus plan, because it's entirely possible that we're going to need to have an interim kind of space and an interim kind of approach to that, and then a longer term plan that really meets the needs of kind of the longer range organizational goals. Oh, sorry. I tend to walk around. Anyway, so that's really what we're going to be doing in this December meeting. And as a part of that, when we come out of that, we've kind of bifurcated our approach to this into 2 groups. I'm kind of handling the property piece of it with some other volunteers that are working with us. And our geography, just so you know, is the town of Mount Pleasant. We really, really want to stay in the town of Mount Pleasant. The town has been so supportive of our efforts, and it's important to Nancy and this organization that we stay here. So if you know of property or you know of opportunities, please, we're opportunistic at this point, even though we haven't really defined what those needs are. I'm going to be heading that up, and then I wanted to just acknowledge my wife, Wendy. And Wendy is graciously accepted to lead kind of our capital campaign. So there'll be more on that. Again, we take the responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility of our donations and grants and everything very, very seriously. And so we want to make sure we have clearly defined those needs before we come and ask for that. So just know that's on the horizon. And again, thank you for attending today, and thank you for everything you've done.
So since we've made it jam-packed for you with like all sorts of information and faces and names and all of that, we did put question cards out on the table, but there wasn't a lot of time to write questions. So it's funny, if we go back to where we've been and where we are and where we're headed, we started with questions in the group. So I know we're hitting 9:30. If you want to run. But if there are any pertinent questions right now or thoughts or anything you want to address and you feel comfortable to do so, raise your hand. We've done that before because this is like a conversation and we're only as good as what we know. And I open it up to you. If there's any questions, thoughts, concerns, please raise your hand and we have one. Hey.
I had a question. I've been told by a number of people that Narcan is not available in all schools in the Tri-County area. Is that true?
It depends on how you define that. All SRO officers, which are first responders, law enforcement officials that are in schools, are required to carry Narcan. We had to figure that out a couple years ago when we were creative. So that's how they are in schools.
And I would think that now that apparently some schools are transitioning away from SROs for full-time, I just heard that they're putting metal detectors in, and they're going to full-time police officers in those schools. So I would, and I have heard instead of SROs, and I'm also referring to, and that's the high schools. I'm also referring to middle schools, because if anybody thinks that you just need that in high school, they're fooling themselves.
You're exactly right.
And we need it in middle schools too, so I'd be interested, to know if it's in all high school and middle school in the Tri-County area, and if it's not, why is it? Is it because the school boards don't want it in there because we don't need that, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
we don't need birth control either, but
Absolutely.
And not pretend like we don't need it.
I wish we could say, and I'm glad you brought that up because that year, 2017, when I went to that conference, there was an organization. It was chief of police, it was the school district head, and then it was someone else that did a presentation on Narcan, naloxone in schools. That's what started the conversation that I had with the school districts. School employees should not have them in the school. We could not do trainings in the school for school employees. That's why first responders could. However, on one of the boards that I sit on, it is brought to our attention for intervention measures on substances in the schools with individuals. It is not a high school thing, and I'm sure we're well aware of that. This is a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade thing. Are we talking about pills? We're talking about Xanax. Xanax that comes out of prescriptions from their parents, but also street Xanax. And what I even has shared is that, okay, let's not even acknowledge about the students, right? But and this is why Anne Arundel County started their Narcan in schools. A parent came for a student conference, was standing in the school office, and passed out and had an overdose. That's when things changed. And for our organization, we want to be proactive. We should not have an overdose in a school office from a parent, a grandparent, a family friend, or a delivery driver. Every school office, every school nurse should have Narcan. They should. Every life is breath and hope. And so,
Well, I don't want to disappoint the big right problem because
Uh-huh.
I've never done that in my life. And I'd be happy to do whatever, be involved with whatever to get Narcan into the school.
absolutely.
And so any way that I can plug in with that, whether I have to attend school board meetings or whatever,
Then
I'm
let's
ready
do
to
it.
plug in with that.
Let's do it.
Help get this done.
We would like that. We need that in schools before something happens and you see it on the news and we have to do something about it then. Let's do it beforehand. Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions about what we do, why we do it, or suggestions or thoughts? If you do have one and you want to write it down, we can always post on social media the answer to it as well. So we have the questions on there. Write it on if you want to. Leave it at the table. Someone will pick it up. We want to thank you. Thank you for spending an hour to an hour and a half of your morning with us, getting it chock full of numbers, stories, faces, staff, board members, capital campaign, all of these amazing things. And we thank you for being our hope, our homegrown hope, and touching over 500,000 lives in 2 short years. So thank you, and we continue to ask to be a part of it. Whatever that looks like for you, we encourage you. And come see us, 857 Coleman Boulevard, Suite D, or send us an email. Check out our website or social media. So I want to thank everyone that's here, our recovery allies, recovery members, recovery family members, and concerned community citizens. We appreciate you, every single one of you. Have a great day.